They are some of the most powerful beings ever risen from humanity. The few who had the will and the fortitude to survive the transformation to become what they are. They are the sword and the shield, the bastion against corruption, and the balance point that will stave off Armageddon. If you're a fan of the World of Darkness, this sounds like the Garou of Werewolf the Apocalypse, who've sworn to oppose the corruption of the worm and to fight for the fate of the world. If you're someone who prefers the grim darkness of the 41st millennium, though, it sounds more like the description of the Space Marines, the God Emperor's Angels of Death. For those familiar with my RPG releases, you may have seen installments for my 100 Kinfolk project that I created for use with Werewolf. I spent a good year and a half elbow deep in the setting, creating 100 unique NPC kinfolk for each werewolf tribe, studying the culture, history, and strange powers each one is known for. What you might not know is that just before quarantine, I really began exploring the dark future of the Warhammer 40k setting. And what I found there is there are a lot of surprising touchstones and overlaps between these two properties. Not in a X clearly inspired Y way, mind you. More in a, these two songs are clearly different, but they're hitting a surprising number of the same notes. And the harder I looked, the more difficult it was to ignore. So, as an academic exercise, I thought I'd map the closest fitting Space Marine chapters onto the Garou tribes that I feel are their spiritual cousins. And perhaps if you're a fan of one setting, but not the other, this could work as a jumping off point for you. Number 1. The Black Furies. This list is already starting off on a bit of a controversial note, and before all those clearing their throats start, I know. The Black Furies are known for being predominantly female, fulfilling the archetype of the Amazon warrior, with males who experience their first change being given to other tribes. As such, the Adepta Sororitas, the Sisters of Battle in common parlance, would be a far better fit thematically for the Furies. I agree, but we're talking about Space Marines. And while the Sisters are many things, Astartes is not on that list. Perhaps the closest in terms of classical inspiration to the Black Furies are the Minotaurs. The Space Marine chapter draws on the cultural inspiration and fighting style of ancient Spartan warriors, and they are relentlessly brutal in pursuit of their goals. And just as the Furies themselves may have trouble containing their frenzy due to the flaw of the tribe, so it is said that the Minotaurs would often act as berserkers, driven to acts of destruction that were awe-inspiring in their scope and scale. While an argument could be made that the disciplined firing lines of the Imperial Fists are more in keeping with the precision archery of the Black Furies, the soul of the tribe goes far deeper than the bow, in my view. Number 2. Bone Gnawers. The Bone Gnawers are often looked down on by the other tribes, seen as little more than mongrel scavengers. The tribe instead thinks of itself as the underdog, disregarding the conventional rules in favor of unusual tactics, unexpected strategies, and winning through unconventional means. When you add in the sheer scale of the information networks the Bone Gnawers can command, they are a clear fit for the Alpha Legion. The last of the Space Marine legions to be reunited with its lost Primarch, or Primarchs in the Alpha Legion's case, as they were twins, the Alpha Legion was initially treated as the runts of the litter. They were still Space Marines, but they were the baby brothers of the Emperor's sons and grandsons. While they may not have been as strong as some of their brothers, or as tough as others, the Alpha Legion was the most cunning. They manipulated, cajoled, tricked, trapped, and whispered, moving enemies and allies alike as if they were pieces on a chessboard. If you saw the Alpha Legion's hands at work, it was because they wanted you to see them. This maps quite well with the Bone Gnawers who follow Rat as a totem of war. A straight-up fight is for fools, and it's a good way to get killed. A sucker punch, a whispered slight, setting an enemy at one another's throats while you sit back and wait. These are the things that Rat does to win at the end of the day. While other Garou may look down their noses at the bone gnawers, the vicious streak is there, just beneath the surface. Number 3. Children of Gaia. The Children of Gaia are often thought of as the peacemakers and diplomats of the Garou. They are the last to reach for violence as a solution to a problem, and they are the ones who are most trusted to be level-headed, attempting to see the perspectives of all sides. The children are still Garou, though, and when the time for discussion is over, they will fight just as hard, if not harder, than the other tribes. Because when words don't work, teeth and claws will settle the issue for good. The Salamanders are often given the same side-eyed looks by their cousins in the Space Marines, due to the fact that they consider themselves protectors of humanity in the immediate sense. Which means they will fight and die to protect a grubby little hamlet with as much fervor and ferocity as they would fight on the steps of the Emperor's own palace. Both the Children of Gaia and the Salamanders remind themselves that life is a sacred thing, not to be tossed away out of anger or because it's convenient to do so. They remain connected to humanity and refuse to grow used to the burden they carry. And often they are the first to sneer at vainglory and self-aggrandizement, reminding others they were not made to revel in carnage and bloodshed, even when it is a necessity. Number 4. Fianna. The Fianna are some of the fiercest among the Garou. Warrior poets, they are as well regarded for the tales they tell, the songs that they sing, and the great art they create, as they are for their unbridled ferocity when battle is joined. Passions burn hot within the Fianna, though, and their rage can be a horror when it holds them in its grip. The Blood Angels meet the Fianna on nearly every point. Encouraged to study and excel at the things that make life worth living, many of them are painters, poets, and crafters of beautiful and deadly things. And within the breast of every Blood Angel, there lurks the waiting curses of the Red Thirst and the Black Rage. The sheer willpower it takes to keep a white-knuckled hold on their need to slake their fury, and knowing they are doomed to succumb to it sooner or later, makes them as akin to doubles as one might find between these two settings. Number 5. The Get of Fenris. The children of the Great Northern Wolf are some of the fiercest warriors among the Garou. The Get of Fenris come from Scandinavian stock, as well as the northern Germanic tribes, howling into battle like the Ulfhednar of legend. They tend to be hard fighting, hard feasting, and always trying to top their previous feats of bravery, foolhardy as those feats might be. There is perhaps no clearer match on this whole list than the Volca Fenrica, the Space Wolves. With inspiration drawn from the same myth cycles, the Space Wolves are warriors to be feared. They were born on the horrifying world of Fenris, and it has made them hard, inured to the dangers of life as they travel the galaxy. The Space Wolves even share the fatalistic attitude of many of the Get of Fenris, knowing that they will either die or succumb to the curse of the beast within, but fighting all the harder despite that. Because until that day comes, there is blood in their veins and fire in their breasts, and they will make their lives a tale to be told for generations to come. Number 6. Glasswalkers. While most tribes tend to live in the modern day, utilizing the conveniences and technologies we all have access to, the Glasswalkers embrace the spirit of invention that is cockroach. Born to cities and wires, they can create bizarre things that border on the heretical, but which effortlessly blend the traditions of the past with the inventiveness and creativity of the present, and sometimes of the future. Glasswalkers are high-tech werewolves who embrace the Weaver and the Machine in ways that often make other Garou less than comfortable. The same can be said of the Iron Hands. The sons of Ferris Manus, these Space Marines are particularly adept at maintaining and repairing even the most advanced forms of technology. Closely aligned with the machine-worshipping tech priests of Mars, the Iron Hands also have a tendency to replace wounded or defective parts of their bodies with robotic prosthetics. This tends to make many of them more machine than man after they've been deployed for any length of time, but even those still in possession of most of their organic bodies tend to have minds and souls of machines when viewed by outsiders. Number 7. The Red Talons. The Red Talons have lost more and more of their land, their status, and their numbers as humanity has pushed nature to the peripheries of the planet. With no human kin, Red Talons are only as strong as the wolves of the world, and as wolves have waned, they've felt their backs pressed against the wall. Vicious and bitter, their desires to control man's spread were ignored, and they have suffered as a result. While not a perfect match, the World Eaters share many aspects of the Red Talon story. Their Primarch Angron was made a slave, and then stolen away against his wishes by the Emperor on the eve of his last battle with his chosen brethren, escaped slaves from the gladiatorial pits, like himself. They were cut down, hunted, and were to be killed like dogs by the rulers of that world. The World Eaters are brutal, and their wrath is the stuff of horrifying legends. And while the grim darkness of the far future is filled with horrible machinery, the World Eaters prefer to rely on melee fighting, feeling the blood spray across their faces and their red armor as they fight. Also, before they were renamed when Angron took control, they were known as the Warhounds, a name that would not be out of place were it given to the Red Talons. Number 8. Shadow Lords. The Shadow Lords were once the power behind the throne of the Garou nation. The hands who did the deeds the rulers couldn't be seen sullying themselves with, they operated in the shadows to do what needed to be done. Though they are still powerful betas and lieutenants, the Shadow Lords are often thought to be playing their own games, helping the Garou nation in its struggles only because doing so gets them closer to their own goals. And, in some cases, people suspect they wish to ascend above their traditional station to sit the thrones they have served for so long. The Dark Angels, the mighty fighting First Legion, operate in much the same way. Able to adapt themselves to whatever the situation calls for, the Dark Angels tend to play their cards close to their armored chests, keeping their own counsel while simultaneously presenting a compliant face to the forces of the Imperium at large. A face that most are suspicious of, but which they will not call a lie without proof to back up those bold words. And much like the Shadow Lords, the Dark Angels are pursuing their own agenda far more often than most realize, particularly when it comes to the hunt for their own corrupted brethren who have fallen to the forces of the dark gods of chaos. This stain on their honor must be rubbed out before they can hold their heads high once more. Number 9. Silent Striders. The Silent Striders rely on speed and stealth more than almost any other tools. Able to accomplish feats as lone wanderers or small groups that would take an entire strike force of other Garou, they have an intimate knowledge of the shadows and the umbra that have marked them out. While none doubt their commitment or skill, few find they ever truly know these nearly silent members of the nation. The Raven Guard occupy a similar place in the grim darkness of the far future. Able to commune with the shadows in ways that few truly understand, their tactics are as precise as they are deadly. Often operating under strength or having to fight with far smaller numbers than their cousins would, the Raven Guard usually accomplish their victories in such a way that once they've left, no one will even know they were present. Marked by their pale skin and black eyes, the Raven Guard's presence is rarely known unless they desire it to be known, and their deeds are often obscured by the very shadows they utilize. They may not have the same focused hatred of the undead that the Silent Striders do, nor a curse that bars them from their homeland, but they do share a disgust of the forces of corruption, and more than their share of misery and tragedy. Number 10. Silver Fangs. The Silver Fangs are the royalty of the Garou nation. Once the rulers, or at least the first among equals, their grip on the Garou slipped away along with the divine right of kings. Fallen into dust and disarray with many of their traditions pointless or forgotten, many of the dynasties suffered from inherited flaws or weak minds caused by keeping their bloodlines a little too pure. Though there is a new generation willing to stand to reclaim their ancient glories, there are many who wonder if it's too little, too late for the Silver Fangs. Though they have since fallen to the forces of chaos, with their gene father becoming a demon prince, the Emperor's children in their golden age were everything the Silver Fangs would want to be. Formed from volunteers among Earth's ruling noble families, the Emperor's children sought perfection, or as close to it as they could get. From painting to formations to the art of the blade, they were as elegant as they were deadly, and as refined as they were dangerous. Arrogance and self-aggrandizement was their downfall in many ways, and there are some who say that pride, left uncontrolled, might do the same to the Silver Fangs if they aren't careful. (11) Uktena. It's said that the Uktena have forgotten more mystical rites and arcane secrets than the rest of the Garou will ever learn. Driven by an intense curiosity that borders on a derangement, the Uktena are often willing to use tools and make bargains that would make the rest of the nation blanch. Power is power, or so many will say, and when the fate of the world hangs in the balance, you cannot eschew the use of a tool, rite, or spirit simply because it might make your hands feel dirty. This attitude echoes the very things spoken by the Thousand Sons in their pursuit of knowledge and the powers of sorcery. Filled with potent psychers, these warrior mystics were a force to be reckoned with, and now that they've embraced the powers of chaos, they're even more dangerous. In many ways, they represent a dark mirror to what the Uktena could become if they cross too many boundaries, and let their desire for knowledge pull them too deeply into the shadows. Number 12. Wendigo. Younger Brother is perhaps the most problematic tribe in the setting, with the way they're written. Because while many of the other tribes draw from world history, they're kept flexible, vague, and variable enough to duck some of the thornier issues. This tribe, however, usually just boils down to, they're the Native American ones. The issue, of course, is there were dozens of nations among the native peoples of America, with a huge variety of cultures, languages, and histories between them, but it all sort of gets boiled down into this one amalgamation. Then, just to add insult to injury, you name the tribe after a particular myth that was far from universal among the First Nations. The Wendigo myth originated among the Algonquin, but later spread to the Ojibwe and others, but it was still fairly limited as such things go. In many ways, that's the 90s for you. If Younger Brother was going to share a lunch table with any chapter in the 41st millennium, it would be the White Scars. The White Scars are supposed to be drawing on the history and culture of Mongolia, particularly during the times of Temujin, known to most of us as Genghis Khan, but they come across as a pretty broad stereotype with a lot of problematic elements. And just like Younger Brother, there have been efforts to try to at least touch up this problematic past, but it's kind of like trying to dig yourself out of a hole at this point. (13) The White Howlers. The White Howlers were pushed further and further back from their territories, forcing them to dig deeper and deeper into the darker parts of the Umbra for weapons to wield against their foes. When they ran out of paths forward, they danced the spiral and embraced the corruptive powers of the worm. Driven mad, they became the Black Spiral Dancers, and they have done all they can to suck others into the maelstrom of chaos and destruction that the worm has wrought. This is similar to the paths taken by the Word-Bearers, the first traders, and arguably some of the greatest servants of the Dark Gods. The Word-Bearer's Primarch needed faith, and when he was rejected by the Emperor, his faith was courted by the Gods of Chaos. He became their pawn and dragged his sons down with him. The infection spread, and it was the whispered message of the Word-Bearers that led to blasphemous rites, dark cults, and demonic rituals. They are the blight that has led to so much sickness, anarchy, and strife, and it seems like no matter how many are defeated, there are always more willing to step up and take their places. 14. Stargazers. The Stargazers are perhaps the smallest and most overlooked members of the Garou. Reclusive mystics who chose the path of peace and spiritual enlightenment, they are often thought of as teachers, sages, and counselors, with their attributes as warriors often taking a back seat to their other skills. This is, of course, very similar to
The information requested in this file has been placed under the authority of the Inquisition in the name of Malkador the Sigillite. Imperial Order L-2-ARS Redacted. Stand by for further instructions. Ave Imperator.
As always, thank you for coming along on this journey with me. This is an older piece of mine which can still be found at the link in the video description below. If you're enjoying these video essays of mine, consider leaving a comment about what game you'd like to see me cover next. Then, once you've done that, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and make sure you check out the 100 Kinfolk bundle, also found in the video description.